Hello, JohnPaul here from the Brisbane Broncos and the University of Queensland. Firstly, a thank you to Rob for inviting me to briefly discuss our recent paper published in the Journal of Sports Sciences, examining the agreement between self-perceived sleep and sleep estimated by activity monitors. I'll also give a shout out to all of my co-authors, but particularly Heidi Thornton, Matthew Driller and Balin Couples, given their efforts with some of the data collected in this study. So for practitioners, given the importance of sleep to athletic performance and recovery, monitoring of sleep in athletes has become commonplace to ensure sufficient and satisfactory sleep is being obtained. Now, while it would be nice to use a gold standard measure such as polysomnography to do so, it is impractical for countless reasons. Similarly, while wrist activity monitors offer a valid and reliable alternative, access is not always widespread or practical. Therefore, we wanted to assess if subjective measures of sleep, self-reported by the athletes themselves, were useful for monitoring sleep. Hence, the purpose of this study was to examine the agreement between self-perceived sleep and sleep estimated by activity monitors in professional rugby league athletes. A quick look at the methods used in this study. So we were fortunate enough to engage 63 professional rugby league athletes from 3 different professional rugby league clubs competing in the National Rugby League competition. For the investigation, all athletes wore a wrist activity monitor, allowing us to determine both sleep duration and sleep efficiency, so that being the percentage of time in bed spent sleeping. In addition to that, upon waking, athletes provided us with an estimation of their sleep duration and also rated their sleep quality on both a 5-point and 10-point Likert scale. Now, to assess the level of agreement between self-perceived sleep and sleep estimated from activity monitors, we used mean bias, the typical error of the estimate, and Pearson correlation. So having a look at the key results of this investigation, what we found was a very large positive correlation between sleep duration estimated using activity monitors and subjective sleep duration, with mean bias revealing that professional rugby league athletes overestimated their sleep duration by an average of 19.8 minutes. When considering the relationship between sleep efficiency and subjective sleep quality, only small positive associations were found on both a 5-point and 10-point Likert scale. So what does all this mean? Well, ultimately, the primary findings of this study indicate strong agreement between self-perceived sleep duration and sleep measures derived from activity monitors, although it does appear in the case of professional rugby league athletes that some overestimation is present. The other key finding is that subjective sleep quality, be it on a 5-point or 10-point scale, is not directly indicative of sleep efficiency. Indeed, poor sleep quality is likely a result of a number of sleep-related issues combined. Now, from a limitation standpoint, it is worth noting that this study assumes that self-perceived sleep is not influenced by wearing activity monitors. It is, of course, plausible that athletes report sleep more precisely when they know they are being monitored objectively. It is also important to note that this study involves subjective and objective measures from athletes across 3 professional rugby league clubs. Given this, athletes were, of course, not all residing in the same environmental conditions and receiving the same specific training, with training likely to have varied somewhat across each team, and we know that such factors can influence the amount and quality of sleep obtained by an individual and subsequently may have impacted sleep perception. However, we really see this as a strength of this current investigation, as the data presented is representative of a wider rugby league cohort as opposed to individuals from one specific team. It'd be great to see further work encompassing athletes across teams and sports in other areas of sleep, recovery and performance, so that we can provide practitioners with the most meaningful data possible. Ultimately, from a practical applications perspective, what we do know is that subjective measures provide an inexpensive, easy to administer and non-invasive method to monitor athletes. And certainly the work of Anna Saw out at Deakin University provides evidence for the worth of subjective measures to monitor the changes of the well-being of athletes. Our findings support this notion and suggest that when more sophisticated methods such as wrist activity monitors are inaccessible or inappropriate to monitor sleep, self-perceived estimates of sleep duration can provide data agreeable to those collected via activity monitors and can ultimately provide practitioners insight into the quantity of sleep obtained by an athlete. That's all for me. Thanks again to Rob for the platform to present this work. For any listeners seeking further discussion or a copy of the full paper, feel free to get in touch via Twitter @JohnPaul.